A few weeks back, I purchased both a filbert wisp and an angle wisp paintbrush. I did a review that I'll link in the description. In that video, I focused on grass, shrubs, and flowers. But in today's video, I'd like to put the wisp to the test by using it for bird feathers. For this bird on the left, I'll be applying an initial wet-on-wet wash. I'll let the first layer dry, then I'll be coming back with the filbert wisp for the remaining layers. And for the bird on the right, I'll be working entirely with the wisp and I will not be wetting the bird beforehand. I'll be experimenting with wet on dry and possibly even a dry brush effect on dry paper. We'll just see how it goes and see where the experimenting leads us. For this first wash, I'm using light values of yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and burnt umber. For the beak and the eye, I'll be using just a touch of bloodstone genuine. The same goes for the legs and the feet. And let's throw down a bit of earth so that our bird isn't floating midair. As that dries, I'll be heading over to the right. Like before, I do want the initial wash to be light values. I'm using burnt sienna and burnt umber for the underside. And I'll be using bloodstone genuine on the top side for the wing and the head of this bird. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know that I love leaving hints of the paper white, so this technique is very appealing to me. I'm really enjoying the way the wisp brush breaks up those brush strokes. Now you'll probably notice that my paint and water ratios are not consistent at all, and that's because I'm trying to get a feel for how the brush reacts when it's raked against the paper. If I add too much water, I wind up with more of a wet-on-wet effect, like under the neck, where we can see quite a bit of blending. But if I don't add enough, then the lines wind up a little bit too harsh and rough, and they don't quite glide along. They sort of skip along the paper instead. And you'll notice that here as I start on the tail feathers. See how that paint just looked a little bit too dry? I'm working to find myself a happy medium. I think the first bird is dry, so let's go ahead and see how the wisp works over that dry layer. Well, I think I used a little bit too much water there, but that's okay, because I think the underside should actually be softer than those top feathers. So I'll just make sure and use less water for the wing. I will go over this at least one more time because I do want a little more definition than what we're seeing right now. And let's move back to the right while that second wash dries. This Bloodstone Genuine watercolor by Daniel Smith is really quite versatile, and I've probably mentioned this before, but I like that it can be swapped out for situations where I might consider using black, but Bloodstone isn't as harsh. It looks like a muted, softer black, or I guess more of a gray. But regardless, it was a really good purchase, especially because I don't have any grays in my palette. Unless you count Payne's gray, but Payne's gray I think looks more like it's in the blue family. I don't know, like a neutral blue maybe? Can you tell I haven't studied color theory much yet? It's on my to-do list. And I'll be using some yellow ochre for the beak and the feet on this bird. Burnt sienna for the shadows. And we're seeing that Bloodstone Genuine once again for the eye. And we'll just have this little guy perching on a branch here. Burnt sienna followed by bloodstone genuine. All right, here I go, coming in with less water and a darker value for those feathers. Let's see if we can get some nice definition into the wing. Based on what I learned in the previous video where I used this brush for grass and shrubs, I know that it's important to keep switching up the angles of my brush. Holding it in one position doesn't produce realistic results. I decided to finish up the final details off camera because I always wind up blocking the camera when I try to get in too close for those little tiny details. So here we go. This is what we wound up with. This is the filbert wisp for bird feathers. Next time I'd like to try animal fur. I think that will be a really fun one. Oh, and by the way, for those little tiny speckles that you see on the bird's chest, I actually just used the corner of the filbert wisp. All right, well that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching.